Welcome, and we're so glad that you're here for another mental health and wellness chat. I'm Brittany, and I'm one of your VC Counseling Center counselors here with a very special guest. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Okay. My name is Beth Svetlik, and I am the Director of Victim Services at Midcoast Family Services, which basically means I'm the director over the domestic violence and sexual assault program for our area.
Awesome. And I'm super excited because today, we're here to have, obviously, we're here to finish the intro. We're here to have real conversations about the emotional challenges students face and discuss navigating them. But I'm very excited about this topic because today we're going to talk about something that I feel like everyone should know: relationship red flags. So whether it be romantic partners, friends, roommates, recognizing the signs of unhealthy dynamics early really makes all the difference. So tune in today. We're going to unpack what red flags really look like, why we might sometimes ignore them, and how to set boundaries that could help protect your well-being. So before we jump into the topic at hand, though, for someone who has never experienced any marketing related, which would be hard to do in this area, honestly, but if someone has no idea what is even Midcoast, how would you describe what you guys do to them?
So, Midcoast Family Services itself is an umbrella agency, which I have worked for them for 13, 14 years in multiple different departments. What I really love about Midcoast is we can help on so many different levels.
Yeah.
So we have the homeless prevention program. So if somebody is at risk of being evicted, or maybe they are currently homeless, we have a department that can help with them. We have 2 youth departments. So we have one that goes into the schools and has programs for drug and alcohol prevention and intervention, healthy coping skills, refusal skills, great things like that. We also have another family and youth services program that works with families as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can, do some counseling services, working with the family as a whole, working with the children, parenting classes. It's fantastic. We also have the wonderful thrift stores.
Yeah.
We've got 3 of them. Port Lavaca has one, and now we've got 2 here in Victoria. They help support all of our services because grants do not cover everything.
Yeah.
So they're very important. And then we have our department that has a shelter,
Mm-hmm.
which is a big thing that a lot of people don't know. If somebody is in a domestic violence or sexual assault situation and they need a safe place to go, they can go to the shelter. We have one locally.
Yeah.
It is for women, it is for children of any ages, any genders, and it's also for males, which is a big thing that a lot of people don't know, that a male could be in a domestic violence situation and a safe place to stay. We also have the kennels, pet kennels, which is a huge barrier of someone to leave. They won't leave their pet behind.
Yeah.
And so we do have kennels where they can come in and bring their pets as well.
Yeah.
And then we have lots of services to help survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And realistically, we're releasing this episode during October, during Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I wanted to have an expert here to talk about this because I feel like this is, I don't want to say it's necessarily a taboo subject, because I feel like people talk more and more and it's more and more present in pop culture, social media. Like, we're more aware that this is a thing that exists in the world, right? But I feel like so often, sometimes things can get fuzzy for people where it's almost like, okay, is this actually abuse? Or, I feel like a lot of times in a lot of situations, we don't realize that we're in an abusive situation until we're in deep enough that now suddenly it's scary, or there's something that I feel like I can't do anything.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and I wanted to talk about this so we could kind of start to look at maybe early warning signs too, even of, if something like a scenario were to happen, this could be an indicator. So maybe I should like have my guard up a little bit and like maybe be a little bit more critical in situations or interactions with this person. So I'm excited for today. And so obviously Domestic Violence Awareness Month is a crucial time to raise awareness about both healthy and unhealthy relationships. And I guess let's start from the beginning. Common relationship red flags to watch for. What would be some of the ones that you would advocate that typically are leading or fostering up to a serious, potentially volatile, like abusive situation for someone?
I would say abusive situation, one of the main red flags is that the relationship goes super fast, like super fast. Now, there are some, it's like, oh, we've fallen in love, we have this extreme connection. That's one thing. But if it's somebody's wanting to go a lot faster, like, oh, it's 2 weeks, I want to tattoo your name on my arm, or let's move in together 1 week in, and, you haven't met family, you haven't had big conversations. You don't know yet if you can talk to them about their feelings? Like, can you be fully yourself? Are you swept up in it? Or can you manage those healthy relationship things? Does that make sense?
And that does make sense. I think another thing to add on to that is like maybe even the relationship moving faster and more aggressively than maybe I feel comfortable with, or maybe my past relationships that, like you said, it's 0 to 100 within a matter of weeks.
Right. Sure. Very, very, very fast. Now, some relationships may move that fast. Mm-hmm. But if you're getting married in like a week or two and you're like, oh, you know what? I don't know if I've stopped to actually think about this. And do I really feel comfortable, or am I swept up into it? You can go fast, I would say. But are you also giving yourself time to evaluate? Can I express my feelings? Can we have these healthy big talks that, couples really need to have? Well, any relationship needs to have. You need to be able to talk about those things in any relationship. I would also add what you were saying is sometimes there's a toxic relationship that you're like, this doesn't quite feel good, but they're not hitting me. They're not calling me names, but yet I also can't express how I'm feeling without them, yelling at me or getting upset with me. I also can't, my needs aren't getting met, but it's not bad, if that makes sense. And so I would say both of those, those are red flags. It may not ever turn physically abusive, but is it healthy? Is it toxic?
And I think this is a good point too, to mention that obviously we're listing out these potential red flags. And like you said, with relationships moving fast, just because a relationship moves fast doesn't make it abusive or toxic or a domestic violence situation. Like, these are things where if there's maybe one or two present, depending on the thing, it's kind of iffy. And that's where we say maybe proceed with caution and kind of evaluate and be very aware. Versus, whenever there's maybe every single one of these that we list, then maybe that would be a bigger point of, okay, we need to take a step back and like really evaluate this situation and where I'm at. And I like that you bring that up, though, that it kind of depends too, because one of the things that I hear most often is sometimes people don't realize we put so much effort and time into this thought that an abusive relationship is physical assault or physically harming someone in some way, but that's not always necessarily the truth. And one of the biggest ones I see is, people don't really recognize like reproductive abuse as a form of abuse. And I see that one a lot, where maybe our spouse or partner is controlling our access to birth control pills, or they're controlling our access, keeping us pregnant over years and years and years, where it feels like it's even more subtle things can be a sign of a manipulation or abuse in a relationship. It doesn't have to just be physical assault.
Right. If you don't mind me getting off on a tangent.
No, go for it. We love tangents.
Yes, because that is a big thing that I try to teach a lot of people is, especially the media portrays an abusive situation as physically abusive. Yeah. And that's where it's like some people are like, I don't know if I am or if I'm not. It doesn't have to be physical. Physical is usually one of the last steps. So if it's getting extremely physical, if there's strangulation involved, that is a huge red flag that extreme situations, including death, could be next. So it's not going to necessarily just start there. I mean, I will often say, if you go on the first date or second date and they reach across the table and slap you, you're going to get out of there. So it's not going to start there. It's going to be, we call it the frog in boiling water. If you've ever heard that, if you put a frog in boiling water, they're going to jump right out. Yeah. If you put a frog in water and you slowly heat it up, they'll boil to death because they don't feel that temperature change. Yeah. That's a toxic and unhealthy abusive relationship where it starts off really good. It's that honeymoon phase. Everything is wonderful. Oh, they're listening to me. They're remembering everything. My friends think this person is wonderful. Everything is fantastic. And then it's one little thing happens. Oh, but they're really, really nice and they're really great and everybody else likes them.
It was a mistake, yeah.
Yes. Well, then this other thing, oh, but they apologize, and then those things start to rack up. And then, maybe you notice them treating other people not kindly, like maybe a waitress or a waiter, and they're yelling at them, or they're yelling big time in traffic. And you're like, wow, okay, this is different. It's going to be that slow buildup. It's going to slowly be that verbal, that emotional, that gaslighting, which makes somebody feel absolutely crazy. I would say if you are feeling crazy in a relationship, it's time to take a step back
and evaluate
and look at it, because that's not a sign of love. That's a sign of toxicity or abuse. So there's a lot. I mean, there's financial abuse too. There's emotional abuse, psychological abuse, the reproductive abuse. I'm glad you brought that up because that is a big one. Lots of sexual abuse too. So you can be in a domestic violence relationship and still be sexually abused because you're doing things that you don't want to do, that you're not comfortable doing. So those are all different types of abuse to be on the lookout for.
No, absolutely. And that I went to Midcoast training, the training that you did, honestly. And that statistic you guys gave about strangulation occurring in domestic violence situations and how closely related it is with like ultimate death in those relationships.
Yes.
That still haunts me to this day. Everything that I do, which is good, like it works. But yeah, it's just, you don't realize just how correlated those two things are and the significant increase in the risk.
Yes,
for sure. So, okay, what other common relationship red flags would you say there are?
Yeah, definitely boundaries. I mean, I know boundaries is a hot topic word right now, being able to set a boundary and are people respecting boundaries? That's a huge thing.
Yeah.
If you are not in a relationship, friendship, family or, romantic relationship, and you can set a boundary and have it respected, that's a huge red flag. You getting your needs met is very important. I mean, it's important to have a healthy relationship in and of itself, even with yourself.
Yeah.
Having those healthy boundaries is very, very helpful. Controlling boundaries. If somebody is checking your phone constantly, I've heard now it's a big thing with teenagers that the girlfriend, boyfriend is wanting to get them on Live 360 and is tracking their every move. That's not a healthy relationship at all. A parent wanting to know where their kid is, that's one thing. That's for safety purposes. Tracking every single move is not healthy. A boyfriend, girlfriend wanting to know where you're at all the time. Well, who's going to be there? Oh, well, I don't like this person, so you can't go. Starting to have those controlling behaviors. And it may also come with, oh, but it's because I love you so much. Oh, but it's because, I don't know if they're so good for you. Oh, no, I just want to spend time with you because I love you so much and we should have all of our time together. Those could all be red flags of, this is happening a lot. This is starting to feel controlling. While it may have this twist of they're making it feel like it's an okay thing, it can still feel very controlling.
Yeah. And being able to take a step back and look and say, okay, is this, according to that person, are they the only person I'm allowed to spend time with or do anything with? Even if they may not explicitly state that, they may say, oh, I want you to have friends. I want you to, I can't, you should obviously spend time with your mom. But when it comes down to it, black and white, are they the only person that I'm allowed to spend time with can be a good like thermometer almost for that situation too.
Right. And you can even go to this extreme. Maybe you've been in a relationship for a while and they're wanting to move away from your support system. Like maybe you're starting to get these kind of gut checks of, I don't know about this. Oh, but now they're saying, let's move to this other town because there's all these great opportunities there. You know how this family member or friend maybe isn't so good for you. So let's just move away and start our own life together. That's isolation. And isolation, domestic violence is all about power and control. How can that person get power and control over that person? Isolation is a huge thing. If somebody doesn't have a support system, then they're far easier to control. Oh, and the other thing I would add is self-esteem, self-worth, self-value. Those are huge. So if you feel that those are dipping down, that's a red flag, because if your self-esteem is low, you don't feel good about yourself, way more easy to control than somebody that has a high self-esteem. The low self-worth, value, those things, if they're low, much more easy to control. So if you start to feel like, I don't feel so good anymore. I don't feel, of good worth. I don't feel like I fit in. I'm starting to feel real, real low. That could be a red flag.
Well, and that's something that I hear a lot of times when people start evaluating these relationships, usually after the fact, when they're sitting down and they're kind of like, okay, maybe this is an unhealthy relationship for me. I hear that a lot of, before I was in this relationship, I was happy. I had friends. I did a lot of things. I had self-esteem. I had confidence.
I was having fun.
Yes. And now since being in this, I don't even know who I am. I'm unhappy. I have no confidence. So no, I think that is a really good point to bring up. So yeah, and recapping to red flags, right? So like Beth was talking about, controlling behaviors, monitoring your time, isolating you from friends and family, extreme jealousy or possessiveness. Now, I feel like I always hate talking about healthy and unhealthy relationships in that gray area, because I feel like there is such a gray area of, yes, sometimes jealousy can be somewhat healthy to a degree, but sometimes it can also be unhealthy. So a lot of these things it's not black and white, unfortunately.
No,
it would be
definitely
so
not.
much easier if it was black and white. But this is why I say extreme jealousy, possessiveness. Obviously, verbal abuse, insulting you, belittling you, name calling. This is one of the more obvious ones, right, too. And like Beth was talking about earlier, gaslighting, making you feel like, doubt your feelings or doubt reality. Physical violence, threats, once again, very obvious sign of abuse. And then, or like you said, Beth, an unwillingness to respect boundaries or consent, or maybe consent doesn't really exist in this relationship. Maybe it's about that person's needs or that person's desires more than your own. And we know over the long term, there's obviously significant mental health impacts within unhealthy relationships and domestic violence, both, right? Increased risk of anxiety, depression, PTSD, suicidal ideation. A lot of times we can feel trapped in these relationships because obviously of stigma, maybe fear. And like you said, if I've been isolated, I have a complete lack of resources. And I feel like you could probably speak to this a lot more than I could, of the sense of, what do you feel like are the biggest things that keep people trapped in these situations or in these relationships?
There's a lot of things that keep them trapped. I would say one of the main things is children.
Yeah.
So if they have children together, or if somebody comes into the relationship with children, then it's the financial support that the two people bring to it. The babysitting fact of it. Well, I need to go to work, and this other person is here and can watch the kids. Maybe they don't do the most fantastic job, but it's a lot cheaper and it's a lot safer than them being home by themselves, or, having to pay for daycare. Children is a huge one. And I hear so often, but they're a good dad. It's only me that they're abusive to. They're good for the kids. Or the huge stigma of kids need two parents.
Yeah.
Kids need the dad relationship. The kids need the mom in a relationship, whomever the abuser may be. They need to have both of those parents. So I can't leave.
Yeah.
And then just the huge step of one, moving out. I mean, if anybody's ever moved before,
It's scary. It is.
It's not a simple thing of, oh, okay, I'm going to go move. Lots of people will still say, why doesn't she just leave?
Yeah.
Have you ever moved? It's not just, okay, I'm going to move tomorrow and I'm going to automatically be in the, you have to get utilities turned on. You have to find the place. And y'all know apartments take 3 times your income in order to get in. It's a huge process.
Yeah.
Battling that with a very low self-esteem, all of the burden of the, abusive relationship or toxic relationship, that's a huge weight to be like, okay, I'm just going to move and get out of here. Plus, leaving the relationship is the most dangerous time of the relationship. It is not as easy as I'm going to walk out the door, because walking out that door means you're taking your power and control back from that other person, and they do not like it. They will double down, triple down on whatever they have been doing. If it's guilt, they're going to throw major guilt trips the other person's way. That's when they could become physically abusive. That's when people's jobs get called, the school gets called, lots of things happen because that person does not like that power being taken back.
Yeah. So
it is also a dangerous time to just up and leave. It takes planning to do that. It takes figuring things out. And I know I got off on a tangent. That's a big thing for me, is leaving. It's not easy. And we help with that because we understand what we do as advocates. We're never going to make someone leave because we know that's not easy and it's not necessarily the safest. Somebody may stay with their abusive partner for a year, 2, 3 years longer because they're like, well, they will let me go to school. So how about I get my degree first? I can nail that down, or do this, or maybe I'll finish this semester, or maybe, I know I'm getting a promotion in, weeks, months, whatever it may be. I'm just going to wait for that. They know their abuser the best. Yeah. Nobody else can know them better than they do. So it's always taking that person's viewpoint of, okay, what's going to be safest for you. What do you think? What is it? How easy is it going to be for you to leave? What does that look like for you? Yeah.
And I think that's one of the best parts about Midcoast is having that support through that process to be able to help understand how all of these things work. Because, I can't tell you how many times I've had people want to get involved with, for example, like the legal system in terms of like a restraining order or protective order. And we don't know how to do that. Normal people don't know how to do that. It's scary, especially the thought of going in front of a judge or trying to explain to the police officer what's been going on. So it's a great place to be able to have that support and accompaniment and just expert in the room, if you will, to these processes that most of us don't know because we've never had to do, or maybe this is our first time doing it.
Right. Well, in an abusive situation, if you're getting to the point where you're having to call the police, you're probably in the crazy part where you feel crazy and you're so terrified that you're probably yelling that when the cops do show up, you look crazy and you sound crazy. And the abuser's like, oh yeah, no, this is perfectly fine. This is just them being crazy. So it's hard to call the police. And especially if that abuser's been like, nobody's going to believe you.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to believe you. You know, all of this, you've left this many times and you always come back. I know you're going to come back, because it takes on average 7 times to leave for good. It's usually not a one and done thing. Oh, I'm out the door. No, that guilt, that shame, I call them hooks. The abuser puts hooks into that victim. They know just what to say, just what to do to pull them back in. So yeah, it's not easy to leave, and there's major hurdles, and I'm glad that we are there to be a support system.
No, I absolutely agree. And on that note, though, so let's assume that, from either angle, right? Either someone who is active, maybe listening to this and questioning their relationship, or maybe someone who knows someone in a relationship like this. What would be your suggestions? Like, how do we support ourselves or someone else when they're in this situation? What is the most appropriate course of action?
I always say, believe somebody.
Yeah.
If you are a friend supporting somebody else, believe them. It may sound weird. It may sound scary. Believing them doesn't mean that other person's going to get arrested. It doesn't mean there's going to be negative consequences for that named abuser.
Yeah.
Listening to somebody and believing them and being like, wow, that's really big. That's not going to provide a negative consequence necessarily for the other person. Now, if you go up to them and you're yelling and screaming, causing a scene, that may not be the healthiest thing to do. But just listening and believing yourself. I feel crazy. Yes. Okay. I do feel crazy. So I think something's going on and maybe I should look at it. And going to us as advocates does not mean that anything's going to get reported.
Yeah.
As advocates, we are underprivileged. So we are under the highest level of confidentiality. We cannot say anything to anybody, police officers, anything like that. If they come to the door and they're like, hey, I know so-and-so is here, let me in so I can have them, I can either confirm or deny. So it's, we are under that privilege so that survivors can come to us and feel safe enough to open up and say, this is what's going on. I don't know what to do next.
Well, and I think that's a good point to point out. I hear a lot of times from people this thought that if I go to Midcoast or if I engage with an advocate, then that means I have to start a legal process. What is your response to that?
No, you do not. You do not. If you are an adult, okay. If you're a minor, yes. If you are an adult, no. You do not at all. You can, even if you're sexually assaulted and you want to go for a forensic exam and it's within 120 hours, you don't have to report to law enforcement. If you come to us, domestic violence and sexual assault, whatever it may be, you don't have to report to anything. We know enough now, state knows enough now that coming forward is really big and scary. So it's very challenging to come forward. So that's why there's things put in place of no, whatever it is that you need, you need. If you want to involve the legal services, sure, we can do that. If you don't, that's perfectly fine. If you're an adult, you do not have to report whatsoever. If someone is still in danger, that may be the thing that needs to happen, but we can definitely talk about that.
No, and it's a conversation. I think that's the biggest thing too, is to recognize that the support can still be available no matter where you're ready to go with this situation. Even if it's just you want to talk to somebody about what it might look like if you did leave and play that tape through, that's where this can be a really great service for people to be able to do that.
And one of the things we do is safety planning. That is one of the the first thing, if anybody calls the hotline, one of the first things they're going to be asked, are you safe right now? If you're not safe right now, what we can do to get you safe right now.
Yeah.
And so that is huge. What we do is safety, and not just physical safety planning, the emotional safety planning as well. How can you emotionally stay safe, stay strong to go to the next thing that you want to do?
Yeah.
Involve all of that in the safety planning. And we will not force them to do anything. Somebody can come in once, spill everything, and then they don't have to come back, or they can come back multiple times. They can go back to their abuser, and that's fine. And they can still see us. They can go back to their abuser, stop seeing us, and come back. We never close anybody out. That we never say, no.
Like you were talking about earlier, I think it's important to recognize, like, trusting our own feelings, like that gut feeling.
Yes.
Not ignoring that gut feeling. If something feels off, it very well might be. So it might be worth, sitting down with someone who's qualified and understands these things to be able to help you understand, like, no, this would fit the definition and terminology of abuse or of verbal abuse or whatever it might be. And I think it's worth explicitly stating too, like, knowing that the abuse is never your fault either. You didn't ask for that. You didn't deserve that in any way.
No matter what they said, it is not your fault.
No, absolutely. And okay, so I guess I kind of want to pick your brain too. Given we spent so much time here on what an unhealthy or abusive relationship might look like, let's look at the inverse for a second. What do you feel like are some hallmarks for sure of a healthy relationship?
Those green flags.
Yes, green flags.
Well, you feel sane, you feel happy, you feel heard. You feel like you can have those tough conversations. You can have the fun times, but you can also have those big conversations of, you know what? I don't like it when you do this. Can we talk about this?
Yeah.
Having those hard conversations, I think, is really, really important. Feeling safe in the relationship, feeling like, you know what, I can just go and visit this person and the other person's going to be okay. Healthy communication, not just dropping off the, the face of the earth, but having those conversations and feeling safe, feeling sane, feeling happy, and feeling like you can bring up the tough stuff, the big stuff. It may be uncomfortable, and that's fine, but actually being able to have those big conversations.
Yeah, and having them and leaving the conversation feeling safe in that moment, not feeling threatened or attacked or devalued or like it's going to be an argument when you do have an issue, like feeling like, it's not to say it might not lead to an argument, but ultimately that, like, I can argue with someone and still feel safe with them and in this relationship and feel like I'm heard and valued and needed.
It's going to be productive. You're going to come to some sort of conclusion, some sort of resolution. And I would also say, in 1 month and weeks, 3-4 months later, that's still resolved.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can feel in an unhealthy relationship or a toxic relationship, you're like, oh, okay, we just had this conversation and this is fine. And then a month later, it comes up again. And the abuser's like, no, we never talked about this.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. What are you talking about? No, that's not what I said. And that's when the crazy starts to happen. Like, I know I had that conversation. So if in a week, 2 weeks, down the road, it comes up again or something similar to it, and you're like, okay, yeah, this is still resolved. We're both still on the same page.
Yeah.
I would say that's also a green flag.
Yeah, and then issues are getting resolved and staying resolved. Yeah, like you said. Well, and I think it's important to recognize too, while we're here, that 1 in 3 college students experience dating violence. So this is a very common experience, unfortunately. It's a lot more common than one would think. And a lot of times we just don't talk about this openly with people that we meet. Usually it only comes up in, meaningful, deep conversations. So it's important to recognize too that, even if you're in class right now, looking around the room, probably multiple people around you have experienced this in their lifetime. It's important to recognize your safety and mental health do matter. So recognizing red flags is the first step towards healthy connections. But ultimately, this is obviously very individualized. So this is something that if you're having that doubt, I would encourage you to go speak with someone, be it someone here at the counseling center, be it someone with Midcoast, about, hey, I'm having these questions and doubts about the health of my relationship. Can you help me kind of weed through this to figure out, is this abusive? Is this toxic? because it is so individualized and one-on-one. So, okay, is there anything that we haven't covered yet, Beth, that you really wanted to make sure that you got to get out there in the open? You have this opportunity. What do you want people to know?
Yes, there's so many things I want people to know. I would say, I would add on to that. I know, at least for my generation, I don't know so much about the new generations coming up, but counseling has been such a huge stigma of counseling is for crazy people. Counseling means you're going to go lay on a couch and talk about your feelings to someone. And, as a counselor,
I have some people that do that, but not everyone.
Yes, not everybody does. You want to feel safe and comfortable in that space. And if that's what you need, that's fine. But that's not what it has to be. It can just be a one-time thing. Some people think, if I'm going to counseling, that means I'm in there for 6 months talking about everything. It can be one and done. And I would also add, especially in these domestic violence, or dating violence situations or toxic relationships, we want to turn to our friends. We want to turn to our family. Yeah. Oftentimes that means we're getting a lot of advice. And sometimes that advice can make us feel crazy or cause an argument with that person if you just don't know. You're not listening to me because somebody may not necessarily understand. Or if that person knows both parties, they may try mediator of, okay, let's mend this relationship. And sometimes you just need that third party that doesn't know the other person, that doesn't know you, where you can just go start fresh, say all the things, get it all out. I call it word vomit of I'm just going to say all of these things. And that often happens of someone comes in and it's like all of this starts to come out. And that can make us feel so much better, especially when we're feeling crazy and don't know up from down. And I don't know if this is healthy. I don't know if it's not, they say this, but then this happens. I don't know. And just talking to that other person. It doesn't mean the person in question is going to get in trouble. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to know. It could even be helpful to get those feelings out and learn how to have a productive conversation. And then both people learn how to have a productive conversation and it can be okay. Yeah. Or it could prevent something major from happening. I would also say that this can sound kind of scary, that when somebody's been in some sort of violent situation or abusive situation in childhood and adulthood, it can also often mean that they're more apt to have a second and a third and a fourth one without having that processing of events. Because it's, it's a very big and traumatic thing. I don't want someone to scare that like, oh, this happened to me in childhood or this happened to me, when I was in high school. So that means every relationship is going to be bad. I'm only going to attract abusers. No, definitely not. Yeah. Because you can go and you can heal from it and you can learn different tools, different techniques. You can learn about yourself and how, learn the red flags, learn how to have those healthy, conversations, raise up that self-esteem, that self-worth and have those. So I would say that's another thing. If you've had one, I highly recommend talking to someone to work it out so that you can have healthy relationships.
Yeah, and recognize maybe some of the warning signs too, because I think it's part of human nature to seek out what is known and comfortable for us. And a lot of these dynamics are subtle in the sense that a lot of the times you don't recognize abusers like off the bat, like you said. So sometimes just those dynamics are so comfortable that we find ourselves drawn to them just because that's what we've always known, because maybe like that's what my parents were like, or that's what all the relationships I've ever had are like. So, we subconsciously are drawn to sameness with that. And like you said, if we don't take the time to sit down, look at things, evaluate it, process it, and then come up with a plan of, okay, this is what I need to be looking for that are obvious red signs of these things to be able to protect myself and to choose healthy partners who love and respect me in the future. I liked what you said about recognizing that maybe people in our life, like for example, something I hear all the time from people is that, I don't want to process with family anymore because A, they're tired of hearing it and they don't talk to me about it anymore. Or B, I know what they're going to say. And even more that taking a step further, sometimes, especially with family or friends, and they know both of you in the situation, sometimes you can even get family or friends minimizing, or I don't want to say encouraging, but just kind of minimizing potentially abusive situations and saying like, oh, well, that's how they've always been. They just kind of have a temper. But there is a line where it becomes abusive, volatile, or violent. You know what I mean?
Or maybe themselves have been in a toxic or unhealthy or even abusive relationship. And they're like, no, this is just what a relationship is.
Yeah.
You are in it, so you're done. You have to stay in it, especially if you're going to an older generation. There's a lot of them, no, you stay. Or if it's a certain culture, no, you're here. You have to stay. And that, so yeah, definitely.
I do. I hear that a lot of, well, they don't hit me. So that would be that would be my final straw, is if they were to physically assault me, then I would leave, when there's tons of verbal abuse and everything else leading up to it too.
So I would even add to that, because I've done this for 8-9 years already. I've heard a lot of different things. And I've had conversations with survivors where they actually debated what was worse, physical violence or the verbal mental violence. And so many of them, the majority of them, chose physical violence over the mental. They're like, hit me any day of the week. I don't care, because that will heal. It's that mental and emotional, psychological abuse, that gaslighting that nobody else can see. There's no outward appearance of, oh, this just happened to you. No. And we even doubt ourselves of, was it that bad? Well, they didn't hit me, so it wasn't, they didn't call me a name, so it wasn't that bad. We can downplay it a lot. And that is one thing I would also say is a red flag. If you feel like you're downplaying the relationship and, what's the word?
Minimizing?
Well, no, justifying the other.
Okay.
Yes. When you're justifying the other person's actions. Well, they had a bad day at work. Well, they're taking all of these classes and they're really stressed out. Well, this is going on in their life. Well, their dad was like this or their mom was like this. If you're justifying their behavior and minimizing what's going on, I would say that's a huge red flag. And I would even say people who've been strangled. I mean, going back to that, because that's a hot topic and that happens so often. They downplay that. One, we don't call it strangulation. We call it choking. Oh, they choked me out. Oh, they did this. And we have to physically ask, it is part of our intake process. Did anybody put their hands or anything around your throat? Because if you just ask, were you strangled? No. Were you choked out? No, it's fine. But this and this happened. So many people will downplay that. And that is so severe. So if you feel like you're downplaying something or justifying the other person's behavior, I would say that's something else to look at.
And it's important to note here too, that obviously this isn't therapy. It's not a substitute for therapy or professional intervention. But I think the biggest thing that I would like for you guys to take from this is to know that maybe hearing some of these things, seek help early and know that support is available. And like Beth was talking about, like you can come in and have a conversation to kind of determine if you're questioning whether something is unhealthy. And it doesn't have to lead to legal intervention if that is your concern, that this can be nothing more than a single conversation that you pop in and that you have and you move on with your life and you never come back, So just reach out if you're having doubts, questions, concerns. You can always reach out to us here at the Counseling Center, or you can reach out to Midcoast directly if you're more comfortable with that. Ultimately, the key point here, though, is that you deserve respect, kindness, and care in relationships and within yourself, either one. Okay, Beth, what do you feel like? Will you want people to know about Midcoast? Any other plugs about your services or things that you wish that people would know about you guys that you kind of want to get out open in the air right now?
I would like people to know that we exist. So many people still do not know that we are here. Our services are free and confidential. Like I said, we are underprivileged. So we're not going to go and call anybody and report anything if you are an adult. Our services are for adults. If somebody is in the shelter, then there are child services, obviously. My direct department, we do peer counseling. We have support groups that they can attend. We have a legal advocate. She's not an attorney. She's an advocate who can help walk through those legal processes and help apply for legal aid, different free legal services. We know when it comes to domestic violence, especially, that people don't have a lot of money. Some people do, and they can get out and they can still have that money. And that is fantastic. We can definitely still help. But a lot of times there's that financial abuse. So our services are free and confidential. We work with other services. We can give information and referrals to other places in town that you may need that can help with. We have our thrift store. So if you need help with clothing, or if you need help with, okay, I'm going to leave this situation, but I need a job, but I have nothing to wear to the interview. We can help with a thrift store voucher to help with that. Those different things that we may not think about, like nobody can help with that, or no, it's fine. I'm just going to do it on my own. Come to us. We'll have that conversation and we'll figure out options to help make this as easy as possible, to help this transition from something that was completely awful or really, really bad to ease out of that as easy as possible.
Yeah. And on top of it too, the 24-hour hotline and the safe browser, which is really neat. I was playing with it the other day.
Yes. So we do have a 24-hour hotline. There's an advocate that answers at 24/7. Do you want me to say it?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. It's 361-573-HELP. So 361-573-4357. And that is answered 24/7. We've got that all the time, even 365 days a year that gets answered. We also have something called Resource Connect. And so that is our secure chat line. We know some people cannot talk on the phone. It's not safe for them. We know some people prefer to text, and that's how they feel more comfortable. So they can chat in with an advocate. And that is also 24/7. The great safety thing about that is that conversation stays nowhere. So if your phone is being tracked, and it's not safe to call someone or leave a text message because that abuser is going to find out, that secure chat line is not going to stay. It's not going to stay on our side. It's gone very quickly afterwards, and it just has disappeared into the ethers. It disappears off of the phone. There's also the quick escape, which you're probably playing with. So there's a quick escape option on there where you just click a button and you are out of the conversation, and it is nowhere to be found.
I think it throws you to like a lasagna recipe
yes,
or something.
It throws you to.
I was like, how did y'all decide where it was going to throw someone? Was my first thought.
Love that app. I mean, I love that app. It was designed by advocates. And so it has fantastic features on there. And even if someone's like, well, I don't want to go in and talk to someone, they can chat in. And say, hey, you know what? This is what's going on. Does this mean that I need to come in? We can have a chat, and that's perfectly fine. And I would also add, we have services, what we call secondary victims. So if you're around someone who is going through something really big and you're like, I need to talk to someone about this, you can come in and you can receive services. Even if maybe you experience something in your childhood, that's another thing. It doesn't have to be a current situation. Something might have happened in your childhood and you're like, you know what? I'm going to school and that's really stressful and I've got a job and all of this is coming back up. I didn't expect it to, so I need to talk to somebody about it now. It doesn't matter when anything happened. You can come in and talk or get on those chats.
Amazing. Yeah. So, okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Beth, and you guys listening too.
Thank you for inviting me. This was fun.
This is your go-to space for honest conversations about mental health and well-being. We're your hosts today, Brittany and
Beth.
And we're so glad that you spent part of your day with us. Remember, taking care of your mind is just as important as taking care of your body. Be kind to yourself, reach out if you need support, and know that you're never alone. So until next time, take care and take a deep